over the last couple months, there has been an extreme amount of robberies in Central Park in New York City, specifically from what's being referred to as Immigrant Wolfpacks. Now, I take this very personal for a couple reasons. Number one, I spent a lot of time in New York City. Sometimes I refer to it as my second home. I helped open a charter school in Harlem there many years ago. I spent a lot of time during COVID working there. And I always like to stay near Central Park. I love Central Park. It's beautiful. It brings me back to nature. That's why I always try to stay around there. I believe that Jesus Christ himself was a migrant. I don't think we should be hating on the migrants. But this is a thing. This is something that we have to look into. So I wanted to kind of understand, well, what's actually going on there? Like, what do they mean by migrant wolf packs? Well, here's exactly what's happening when it comes to the robberies in Central Park. What you have is 65,000 migrants all being shipped to New York City seeking asylum there. Most of them are in some sort of a shelter, some giant tents set up in kind of in the Jamaica area of New York City. Massive tent systems housing immigrants. However, if you're a family, where you're going to stay is you're going to stay in a few hotels that they've converted into shelters. One being the Row. Now, I've stayed in the Row. It's a great hotel. In my head, I thought, well, shoot, I'd like to live in the Row. That's a nice place. The other one being the Roosevelt Hotel. And these are both within walking distance of Central Park. Now, these are massive hotels housing thousands and thousands of people, mostly in the form of families. Now, the problem is there's no regulation inside these hotels. These massive facilities that are housing thousands of people, there's no regulation. So gangs have infiltrated it, and the teenage element is the problem. What you have is 11-year-olds on up to like 16, 17-year-olds really just kind of roaming the building, roaming the city, and they're forming packs. And what they're doing is at night, they're going into Central Park, and if you've walked in Central Park, all of it's kind of a trap. I don't know why anybody hang out there at night. But if you're walking down the sidewalk, you have fencing on both sides of you, so if a massive pack of teenagers comes, there's nowhere for you to go. Or under a bridge, or, there's so many different elements taking place here, but this teenage element, they're packs. It's the immigrant wolf pack is what they're referring to, and they're robbing people consistently. Now, the problem isn't the adults in this particular scenario. The problem is the teenage element. That is what is causing these migrant wolf packs to just wander around, robbing people as they wander, really, is how it's playing out. Sounds horrifying to me, especially in a city where you're, for the most, I know it's changing, where you can have a gun, but you can't have a gun. It's still a big gray area there, but most New Yorkers don't carry guns. Be very clear on that, which is why there's so much crime. I mean, the criminals all carry guns, but the citizens don't carry guns, and that's really the problem. If the citizens were carrying guns, this would not be a problem. Now, in response to this, the police presence in Central Park is higher than ever, but the problem is they're just going to go somewhere different. Like they'll still use Central Park. Central Park is massive. It's a massive facility, massive park. There's no way you're policing that whole thing. There's no way. They're just going to move to one other part of the park. You come to this part, they're going to that part. You go to this part, they go to that part. You cover the whole park, they're going somewhere different. Why can't they stop it? Well, it's not the immigrants' fault that they can't stop it. It's the leaders in New York cities and the leaders in New York State that it's their fault, because what's happening is if I'm a teenager and I rob somebody and I get caught, well, nothing's going to happen to me at all. I'm definitely not going to jail. There's definitely not going to be any sort of bond. Maybe after the 1,000th time, I'll finally find my way into the court system somehow. Like, there's no consequences at all. And many of these teenagers are carrying weapons, knives, things like that. But it's not. If you don't hold children accountable, you get Lord of the Flies. This is how it plays out. So the problem isn't the migrants. The problem is not holding the teenage migrants accountable. That's the problem. Whether they were migrant teenagers or American teenagers or European teenagers or Australian teenagers or Chinese teenagers, if you let them do whatever they want and you get a bunch of them together, you're getting Lord of the Flies every single time. And that's ultimately what you have. They should just call it Lord of the Flies robberies is what they should call it. So there you go, man. That's what's actually happening. 65,000 migrants in New York City alone. The families are moving into hotels in Manhattan, walking distance to Central Park. The teenage element in those hotels are totally unchecked, completely unrestricted, wandering the city in packs, robbing people as they go. No accountability from authorities at all. Many cases, these teenagers are caught, they're dragged home, and they're out on the street 5 minutes later. I was a teenager. I ran the streets. I know how that plays out. Bringing you home to parents who don't care, like my parents, you just walk right out the door as soon as the police leave. And the only reason your parents are upset is because it's an inconvenience to them that they had to deal with the cops. So when you have that, this is what you get. This is what you're going to get every time, regardless of where they're from. Unchecked teenagers wandering in packs without any restrictions, you get in this. This is what you're going to get. They're going to rob people is what they're going to do. I've been there. I've been a teenager unchecked. I know how all this plays out. This is not a good thing. And it is the city of New York's fault, and it is the family element's fault. That is the problem with the Migrant Wolfpacks robbing people in Central Park. Any thoughts or insight on any of that, definitely put it below. Do want to take a moment and say most people watch the channel, not subscribers. Click that subscribe button. Greatly increases the algorithm and our ability to get these messages out. That link is also below. But the most important part of this channel, we take prayer requests, so please don't ever hesitate to send that in. Thank you for watching this episode of God, Family, and Guns. And as always, love God, love your family, and love guns.